So I knew I was okay. When he sold 11 million records, he had deals with Jay-Z and them, but Jay-Z ain't gonna never. Dude, I always tell him all the time, Jay-Z ain't treat me like this.
Oh, he definitely like playing. Yeah, this nigga.
Jay-Z might not even say hard as
So we just had a lit. Jay-Z will never take you to a party like this.
It started as talk, just words, a few comments, a little Jay-Z name dropping, some industry chest puffing that probably wasn't supposed to turn into this. But the moment Jim Jones opened his mouth about Jay-Z, the hip-hop chessboard lit up, like someone knocked over a king on purpose. And before the dust could even pretend to settle, Uncle Murda slid into the conversation with zero hesitation and absolutely no chill. This wasn't subtle. This wasn't diplomatic. This was loyalty on full display and smoke handed out with receipts. Uncle Murda didn't just defend 50 Cent, he stood 10 toes down and let Jim Jones catch every stray that came with it. The internet didn't ask for this escalation, but it gladly accepted the package. Fans instantly realized this wasn't just about Jay-Z. This was about lines being crossed, alliances being tested, and old tensions getting reheated like leftover beef that never really went cold. One comment turned into a moment. One defense turned into a statement. And suddenly, hip-hop felt less like a genre and more like a reality show that makes the Kardashians look like they're whispering in church, because when Uncle Murda rides for 50 Cent, it's never quiet, never polite, and never accidental. And when Jim Jones gets mentioned in the same breath as Jay-Z, yeah, somebody was always going to take that personally. It didn't start with a diss track or a studio ambush. It started the way modern hip-hop beef usually does: loose talk, legacy talk, the kind of commentary that sounds casual until it isn't. Jim Jones starts circling Jay-Z's name, and the internet instantly smells tension, not because Jay-Z needs defending, but because any Jay-Z talk is never just about Jay-Z. It's about hierarchy. It's about who belongs where in the rap mythology. And it's about who feels comfortable saying what out loud in public. That's when Uncle Murda steps in, and the temperature jumps 10 degrees. Murda doesn't come in tiptoeing. He doesn't hedge. He doesn't pretend this is a misunderstanding. He plants his flag immediately. This is about 50 Cent. And it's about respect. And once he frames it that way, Jim Jones isn't just commenting anymore. He's catching strays by proximity. Because in Murda's world, if you're talking reckless around Jay-Z while 50 Cent's name is in the same universe, you're playing with wires you don't understand. The internet clocks it instantly. Screenshots spread. Clips get reposted. Comment sections start buzzing like someone dropped a grenade into a barbershop debate. People aren't even arguing about what Jim Jones meant anymore. They're arguing about whether he should have said anything at all. Because once Uncle Murda responds, the conversation stops being theoretical. It becomes personal. What makes this hit harder is Murda's positioning. He's not a neutral commentator. He's not pretending to be Switzerland. He's 50 Cent's guy, and he wears that openly. Loyalty isn't a rumor with him, it's branding. So when he defends 50, it doesn't come off like a hot take. It comes off like enforcement. Like someone reminding the room where certain lines are drawn, and the way he does it. No poetry, no metaphor gymnastics, just blunt energy, the kind that doesn't ask for interpretation. Jim Jones fans say Murda overreacted, that he took industry talk too seriously, that Jay-Z doesn't need foot soldiers. But Murda supporters clap back instantly, saying that's exactly the point. This isn't about Jay-Z needing protection. It's about Jim Jones knowing when to keep certain conversations respectful, because in hip-hop, who says something matters just as much as what is said. The background makes it messier. Jim Jones has always had a complicated relationship with legacy conversations, Harlem pride, Dipset history, the eternal debate about who really mattered and when. So when he talks Jay-Z, people don't hear curiosity, they hear comparison. And comparison is the spark that lights everything else on fire. Uncle Murda doesn't let that slide. He frames it as unnecessary posturing, as talk that doesn't move the culture forward, but does poke old alliances. And when Murda speaks, he doesn't soften it for diplomacy. He speaks like someone who's tired of people rewriting history with selective memory, The first wave of reactions splits immediately. One side calls Murda a real one. They say he did what loyal artists are supposed to do: protect the brand, protect the relationships, protect the respect. They praise him for not dancing around the issue, for keeping it straight and direct instead of polished and passive. The other side calls it cloud chasing. They say Murda jumped into a conversation that didn't need him, that he escalated something that could have stayed talk, that this is just another example of how hip-hop can't let conversations breathe without turning them into conflict. But even the critics keep watching, because whether you like it or not, Murda made it interesting. What really pours gasoline on the situation is how Jim Jones doesn't immediately clap back, at least not in a way that shuts it down. And silence, in moments like this, is never quiet. It becomes a canvas. Fans start projecting meaning onto every non-response. Is he unbothered? Is he plotting? Is he annoyed that Murda even entered the chat? Meanwhile, 50 Cent's shadow looms over everything without him having to say a word. That's the irony. He doesn't post. He doesn't react. He doesn't acknowledge. And yet, the entire moment feels like it revolves around him. That's power. When your name alone can trigger defense, debate, and division, you're not in the conversation, you're the conversation. Murda's words keep circulating, stripped of tone, recaptioned, and reposted with new meanings layered on top. Some frames make him sound like a protector of hip-hop order. Others make him sound like a gatekeeper refusing to let conversations evolve. The truth probably lives somewhere in between, but the internet doesn't get paid to sit in the middle. Old beefs resurface immediately, because of course they do. People start connecting dots that were never officially connected. Old Dipset tensions, old G-Unit history, old industry slides that were supposedly buried. Every archived clip becomes evidence. Every lyric gets re-examined. Hip-hop history starts playing on fast forward. The funniest part is how serious it all gets over words that might have been forgotten in a week if Murda hadn't spoken up. But that's the cost of loyalty in public. Once you defend someone loudly, you don't just protect them, you create a moment. And moments demand reactions. Fans argue over whether Murda helped or hurt the situation. Some say he did exactly what he was supposed to do, shutting down loose talk before it grew legs. Others argue he amplified it, turning a passing comment into a headline. Both sides might be right, which is what makes the debate stick. By the end of this phase, one thing is clear. This was never just about Jay-Z. It was about boundaries, about who gets to say what in a culture obsessed with ranking legends, about loyalty versus diplomacy, and about how quickly hip-hop conversations turn into confrontations when pride and history collide. And this is only the opening act, because once Uncle Murda draws a line in the sand, the internet doesn't step back. It steps closer. And when Jim Jones' name is still floating in the air without a definitive response, everyone knows the next move is going to matter a lot more than the first words ever did. Once Uncle Murda's response finishes making the rounds, the conversation doesn't calm down, it sharpens. This is the phase where everyone stops asking what happened and starts arguing about what it means. The internet shifts from spectators to prosecutors, and suddenly hip-hop Twitter looks like a courtroom where nobody agrees on the charges, but everyone wants a verdict. Reaction videos pop up immediately, and they're split straight down the middle. One camp frames Murda as the last loyal soldier in an industry full of polite fence-sitters. They say this is what writing for your people actually looks like, not vague subtweets and par-approved silence. The other camp accuses him of doing too much, of turning a conversation into confrontation because chaos trends better than nuance. Both sides are loud. Both sides are convinced they're right. And neither side plans on backing down. Memes show up right on time, because hip-hop discourse can't survive more than 12 hours without humor hijacking the wheel. Screenshots of Murda's comments get paired with captions about G-Unit HR and loyalty checks being issued. Jim Jones' face starts appearing next to reaction gifs that imply disbelief, annoyance, or quiet plotting. The jokes don't necessarily pick sides, but they keep the moment alive, which is the real point. Then the celebrity-adjacent reactions start leaking in. Not direct callouts, not official statements, just enough to keep speculation simmering. A repost here, a like there, a cryptic comment about respect or knowing your lane, Nobody wants to say names, but everyone wants their stance. Felt. Ambiguity becomes gasoline. Because the internet reads silence like a coded message, Jim Jones fans jump into defense mode hard. They argue he was having a broader conversation about legacy, not taking shots. They say Murda twisted intent into insult. According to them, hip-hop should be able to discuss Jay-Z without triggering a loyalty alarm. They accuse Murda of acting like a bodyguard instead of an artist, and they say that mentality keeps the culture stuck in old wars instead of moving forward. Murda's supporters don't even pretend to compromise. They say that's exactly the problem. Too many people want to talk legacy without respecting how those legacies were built. They argue Jim Jones knows the weight Jay-Z's name carries and chose to swing at it anyway. In their eyes, Murda didn't escalate anything. He checked it. And checking is part of the culture. Whether people like it or not, the debate widens quickly. This stops being about Jim Jones versus Uncle Murda and turns into a larger argument about who gets to speak on legends. Who earns that right? Who sounds credible and who sounds like they're reaching? Suddenly everyone has a thesis on hip-hop hierarchy, and none of them agree. Meanwhile, 50 Cent remains silent, and that silence becomes the loudest move of all. People start reading it as power. He doesn't need to respond because his name already did the work. Others read it as strategy, letting his camp handle the noise while he stays above the fray. Either way, his absence reinforces the idea that this situation revolves around him without him lifting a finger. Creators start digging up old footage to support their arguments. Past interviews, old lyrics, old Dipset moments, old G-Unit history. The internet starts stitching together timelines like it's building a true crime series about rap politics. Every clip becomes proof. Proof of disrespect. Proof of loyalty. Proof of ego. Proof of insecurity. Pick your angle. The tension escalates because Jim Jones doesn't offer a clean resolution. No clear apology. No definitive clapback. Just enough presence to let people know he's aware, without giving them the closure they want. That lack of closure keeps the debate alive. Fans speculate about whether he's plotting a response, dismissing the whole thing, or letting it ride because engaging would only validate Murda's stance. At the same time, people start questioning Murda's role more critically. Is he speaking from genuine loyalty, or is he enjoying the spotlight that comes with being the loudest offender in the room? Supporters say that question itself is disrespectful. Critics say it's necessary. And once that question exists, it doesn't go away easily. The memes get darker, the takes get hotter, and the lines get firmer. This is no longer playful debate. It's identity politics inside hip-hop. Loyalty versus diplomacy. Old school codes versus new school conversations. Silence versus speaking up. Everyone picks a side that matches how they see the culture. What really keeps the story burning is how familiar it feels. This isn't new beef. It's recycled tension in a new wrapper. The same arguments hip-hop has been having for decades, now compressed into a viral cycle that moves faster and hits harder. People aren't just reacting to Murda and Jim Jones. They're reacting to years of unresolved hierarchy battles. By now, the moment has outgrown the original comments completely. You could remove Jim Jones' initial Jay-Z talk from the equation and the debate would still rage because it tapped into something deeper. Respect. Status. Who speaks with authority and who gets checked for it. As the noise peaks, one thing becomes obvious. This isn't going to end with everyone agreeing. There's no clean winner here, just louder positions and deeper divides. Murda doubled down on loyalty. Jim Jones doubled down on not backing down publicly. And the internet doubled down on making sure neither side gets peace anytime soon. This phase ends not with a bang, but with tension stretched tight enough to snap. Because once a moment stops being about words and starts being about what those words represent, the fallout isn't immediate. It simmers, and everyone knows what comes next. Either someone finally says something that closes the loop, or this turns into one of those hip-hop moments people reference for years with a simple phrase. Remember when Uncle Murda checked Jim Jones? By the time the smoke starts pretending to clear, the real impact finally shows itself. This is the phase where everyone claims they're over it, but keeps bringing it up anyway. The jokes slow down, the timelines refresh, and the moment settles into something heavier than a viral exchange. It becomes a marker, a reference point. One of those situations people will casually cite later, like everyone remembers exactly where they were when it happened. For Uncle Murda, this moment locks in a reputation he's never really tried to escape. Loyal to the core, loud about it, unapologetic when lines feel crossed. Supporters see he did exactly what he was supposed to do. They frame it as standing on principle in an industry that loves to play neutral until it's convenient. To them, Murda didn't escalate anything, he clarified it. He reminded the room that respect still has boundaries, even in an era obsessed with hot takes. Critics see it differently. They argue that Murda didn't protect the culture. He froze it. That by jumping in so aggressively, he turned a conversation into a confrontation and guaranteed the moment would overshadow whatever nuance existed before. In their eyes, this wasn't loyalty. It was amplification. And amplification online is a dangerous thing because it rarely stops where you expect it to. Jim Jones' public image takes a hit, even without a direct loss. That's the quiet consequence. The narrative shifts around him. Fair or not, some fans start framing his comments as unnecessary provocation instead of thoughtful commentary. Others defend him harder than ever, saying this proves people still try to police who's allowed to speak on legends. Either way, the conversation around Jim becomes more cautious, more defensive, more loaded than it was before. And then there's the shadow player in all of this. 50 Cent, the man at the center without ever stepping into the frame. His silence becomes the cleanest win of the entire saga. He doesn't react. He doesn't acknowledge. He doesn't correct anyone. And somehow, that restraint speaks louder than any response ever could. People read it as dominance, as confidence, as someone who knows the board well enough not to flip it over. The culture starts processing what this really was. Not a beef, not a diss, but a reminder of how fragile conversations become once legacies enter the chat. Jay-Z's name was the spark, but the fire was always about hierarchy, about who feels comfortable talking up, talking sideways, or talking at all. The moment exposes how fast hip-hop dialogue turns into boundary enforcement when respect feels threatened. What lingers longest is the divide it leaves behind. Some fans feel validated that loyalty still matters, that someone will step up without waiting for permission. Others feel exhausted, convinced this is why meaningful conversations struggle to survive in public. Both reactions can exist at the same time. And that's why this moment sticks. It didn't resolve anything. It revealed fault lines that were already there, industry-wise. Nothing explodes, but everything shifts a little. People watch their wording more closely. Interviews get more careful. Questions get dodged with jokes instead of answers. Nobody wants to be the next person whose commentary turns into a loyalty test. The chilling effect doesn't come from fear, it comes from awareness. Everyone saw how fast this spiraled. As weeks pass, the story cools, but it doesn't disappear. It gets referenced casually in other debates, dropped into conversations like a shorthand for what happens when talk goes too far. Remember when Murda checked Jim? Becomes a phrase that carries more weight than the original comments ever did. That's how you know a moment has outgrown itself. The most uncomfortable truth is that no one really wins these situations. Murda strengthens his image but narrows how people expect him to move. Jim Jones keeps his voice but takes on extra scrutiny. 50 Cent stays untouched, which only reinforces his status. And the internet gets entertained, then moves on without accounting for the mess it helped create. This is how modern hip-hop moments end. Not with closure, but with residue. With opinions that harden. With sides that don't dissolve. With lessons that get acknowledged but rarely applied. The conversation didn't die. It just changed shape. And maybe that's the real takeaway. In a culture built on voice, silence can be power. Loyalty can be loud. And legacy is the one word guaranteed to turn casual talk into confrontation faster than anything else. The next time someone casually mentions a legend's name, this moment will be sitting in the background and spoken but remembered. A reminder that in hip-hop, words don't just travel, they collide. And now the floor is yours. Because moments like this don't get decided by headlines, they get decided in the comments. Was Uncle Murda standing on real loyalty, or did he turn a conversation into a collision that never needed to happen? Was Jim Jones just talking legacy, or did he step into territory he should have known would spark smoke? Don't play the middle. The middle never trends. Pick a side and say it loud. Drop your real take below. Not the politically correct one. Not the one you think sounds smartest. The honest one. Does hip-hop still need people willing to check talk in real time? Or has that mentality become part of what keeps the culture stuck replaying the same arguments? And where does Jay-Z fit into all this untouchable icon, constant comparison point, or just a name that sets everything on fire? If this breakdown had you nodding, arguing with your screen, or rewinding just to catch the bars again, smash that like button like it owes you money. Likes tell the algorithm this wasn't just noise, it was a moment that exposed how fast respect turns into rivalry. And if you're tired of surface level takes and want the real fallout when hip-hop conversations go left, hit subscribe right now. This channel doesn't just report the smoke, it tracks where it spreads. New debates drop fast. Old tensions resurface even faster. And the next innocent comment is always one sentence away from turning into a loyalty test. Stay locked in, stay sharp, and remember in